Hello, welcome to Monday Morning Matters live broadcast show brought to you by Magnicraft Consulting team, anchored by Niyi Dunmade, a certified church consultant with the Society for Church Consulting in the U.S. Here, each Monday of every week, we address important, relevant, and actionable topics of interest that will help you and your church grow healthier. And now, meet your host, Niyi Dunmade.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm so happy to come your way this morning. My name is Niyi Dunmade. I'm the founder, I'm the CEO of Magnicraft Consulting. Magnicraft Consulting. Today is Monday Morning Matters again. I welcome everyone to this live broadcast show and thank you for hooking up with Monday Morning Matters. Last weekend, we had some breakout sessions with the church administrators at Advance 2021. Fantastic meeting of church leaders coming together to sharpen themselves. So I'm so glad that you are part of this live broadcast. I'm Niyi Dunmade again. I'm a certified church consultant with the Society for Church Consulting in the U.S. I'm the lead consultant also and the founder of Magnicraft Consulting Limited. Magnicraft Consulting Limited. So a big thank you to those who reacted through likes, comments, and reach out to us on our social media handles. It's scrolling on the screen. Please feel free. There are quite a lot of videos and content that have been pushed out. Feel free to share them to a church leader, a church pastor, a church worker, a church staff, and let's see how that broadcast content can be helpful to the right people. Let's be attentive as we dive into today's issue. Today, we're going to go further in part 4, and that's the gospel-focused church. the gospel-focused church. And one of the things that I mentioned in the show note, you see, I don't know what a local church can be. I don't know what a local church can do without focusing on the gospel. Focusing on the gospel. It's so critical that we need to ensure that in the times where bad news are so vast, they are spreading so fast, bad news is everywhere. The pandemic made a lot of bad news to amplify. And I'm telling you, it's timely for us to emphasize how most of our churches can be gospel focused in nature. In evangelism, in discipleship, we need to make sure that we infuse our gospel into those areas and ensure that it is actually giving us the desired result that's leading them to the power of salvation. So the pandemic, COVID-19, because today is March 22nd, 2021, it's been a year we have been on with the virus. God has helped our countries all over the world. But you see, the pandemic and COVID-19 put a pause on some church functions. And those church functions are very, very important. Some church functions like fellowship, like evangelism, like discipleship, we could not come together again. And therefore, we had to leave the four walls of our churches because of social distancing. So because of the pandemic, we put a pause on evangelism and discipleship and fellowship in our local churches. Okay, those pauses are very critical because most churches that I've consulted for have issues with evangelism and discipleship. So let's don't complicate the gospel. The gospel is very simple. The gospel is very clear. The gospel is very needed so that it can transform as many lives. I made it clear in last broadcast that the end will not come. That's one of the major indicators in the fact that we do not know when the end will come. But there's a condition at which the end will come. And when the end will come, we can assure that everyone on the face of the earth has heard the gospel. The Bible says that this gospel shall be preached in every corners of the earth. And so the church should be championing channels, channels and mediums and conduits for the gospel. That means that wherever our members are going in all the spheres of life, whether it's in institutions, in schools, in hospitals, place of work, in the courts, wherever it is, there should be a beacon of carrying the gospel to those platforms. Carrying the gospels to those platforms. So that's how we're going to change our world. That's how we're going to change our society. That's how we're going to change our community. You cannot put the power and the potency of the gospel aside and you expect that your church will have a cutting edge in the community. Why do we need one? Why do we need the gospel to be a forefronter in today's world? I've told you one, the bad news is so widespread, and when we have bad news right now, that is when the good news is having a greater value. Okay, good news is having a greater value. Why do we need one? If everything that has been stated so far is true, then the answer is, why do we need a gospel-focused church? Why do we need a gospel-centered church? Why do we need a gospel-focused church? A gospel-driven church? Okay, in the last sessions, we spoke about the content of the gospel, and that gospel is the power of salvation, or power of God for salvation in Romans chapter 1 verse 16. And so the truth about it is that any church, I can tell you for free, that is not built on the gospel, that is not built on what Christ has done, or as built on the foundation of Jesus, is going to crumble. Churches that are built around miracles, around gimmicks, around personalities, entertainment, all kinds of relationship and much more, are not going to stand the test of time. But I'm not saying that those things are not important. They are important, but without the gospel, we can say that the church has no power. The power is what creates true churches. The power that creates true churches is in the gospel. And that gospel must be centered around must be permeating your pulpit, every department, every fellowship, every unit in the church must have that gospel permitting in every area of the church. Now, the truth about it is that one of the churches that most churches die because they are inwardly focused and they are not looking at the community or looking outward beyond the four walls of the church. And most of the unbelievers are not really anti-church. They are not really anti-gospel. It's just that the method at which we present this gospel to them is what that is making them not to really welcome the gospel. I must tell you, the unchurched are actually, they love the glad tidings. They love the good news, good tidings. They love. I'm yet to see a research who says the unchurched are adverse to hearing the gospel. They are not anti-church. They are not anti-gospel. Few are highly antagonistic to the gospel, yes, but that's not the norm. It's because of the method at which we are delivering the gospel to the church. In fact, it's stated that about 5% of unchurched Americans are highly antagonistic to the gospel. That means that we still have a wide range of people who are actually going to. And if you present the gospel, you present the good news in such a fantastic manner, people, the unchurched, the unsaved, will be able to embrace it and then ask the question, what more can I do to be saved? The good news. Believers need to be championed. The unbelievers will not come to champion the spread of the gospel. It's the believers in the body. It is the responsibility of the body of Christ to share the gospel. The world will not come to share the gospel. The world has a lot on their mind to share negative news, negative reports. They are so very, very prompt with sharing fake news. But we have the authentic news. We have the good news. We have the real resource that can transform our world, and we need to make sure that we share the gospel to every corner. But the truth about it, we have a lot of our church goers, our church members, who do not have that personal conviction and commitment and responsibility to share their faith. Because when you share your faith, you need to be vast with the gospel. When you share your faith, you need to be vast with the testimony of how God saved you. Okay, 61% of people who go to church have not told another person, another unbeliever, another unsaved about Christ in the last 6 months. That's a very, very, very shocking trend, which we need to change. Okay, 80% of churchgoers believe that they have a personal responsibility to share their faith, and we need to create that body in our members to ensure that they are actually spreading the gospel, that they ensure they are actually spreading the gospel. Let's see how we can spread the gospel for Christ. Let's see how we can spread the gospel. The vast majority of Christians also believe that sharing their faith they believe that they should share their faith, but few actually do. So if you have, let's say, 10 who believe that they need to share their faith, what happens is that less than two out of those 10 are actually sharing their faith. And Christians need to be to show that urgency. Christians need to show that compelling mentality. Okay, that word compelling. Maybe next Monday I'm going to talk on how compelling, because Jesus Christ, in the parable, there was a marriage supper. Everything was ready, and then they invited people to come and eat in the wedding, and they gave all kinds of excuses, flimsy excuses, that they cannot come for the supper. And there was a word that Jesus Christ used in that parable, that go and compel. That should show you that you cannot leave the gospel to argument. It's not something you should arm yourself with to start to argue. It's something you need to make sure that you have that compelling, okay, to compel the outward people who are not part of this body, but doing so with love. Doing so with love. You cannot lead your church appropriately without having most of your church members, church believers, doing the sharing of faith by sharing the gospel of sin. So as a church, what are the steps you need to do to advance this negative trend. First, we need to admit the problem. One of the things as I do as a consultant is to diagnose a church and let the church see the challenge they're in, the problem they're in. Because if you don't know the problem, you'll be addressing some other things that is not the problem, wasting resources, wasting energy, affecting the systems of the church. Okay, we need to understand that this is the problem, and let's admit that it's a problem that people are not sharing their faith. How do we begin to train? That's why evangelism is weak, because people are not sharing their faith. That's why most of our messages do not have a high conversion rate, okay, in our churches. Ideally, if we have good evangelism, we are very evangelistic, sharing the gospel in the community, we'll find out that we'll have people coming to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. We're going to have a lot of baptism. We're going to have a lot of disciples, because that's where it starts from. You have to get people saved. You have to get people baptized, and then you have to begin to mature them to discipleship. Okay? So more than half of churches in the Baptist, for example, baptize less than one person every 2 months. And because of that statistics, because we are not sharing the gospel enough. Church leaders need to think beyond, outside the box, to see how they can create the burden, create that urgency, instill that compelling mentality in their church members to go out there and then see how they can connect. They can converse, have some gospel conversation, whether it's online, whether it's offline, the place of work, wherever they find themselves is, so that people can begin to do something to get people saved for Christ. The second thing I want to say here also is we should need to lead by example. Lead by example. Lead by example. Most of the problems we have in churches is because our leaders are not setting the example. Okay, they want to see you go and preach the gospel. They want to even see practical steps of how you share the gospel. So evangelistic churches are led by evangelistic leaders. Okay, evangelistic churches are led by leaders who are actually setting the pace and leading the examples for church members to follow. Okay, they don't just leave evangelism to a department. They don't leave it to a set of people who are called. Everyone is called into the work of an evangelist or evangelism. So the leaders must set the pace, must lead by example. You cannot expect the church members to be doing more or to be sharing their faith when you are not actually sharing your faith. There's no how you can increase the evangelistic temperature in your church when people in your church are the one reminding the church about evangelism. You cannot increase the evangelistic temperature of your church when a group of people who call themselves evangelism team are the one always reminding the church about evangelism. We need to see how we can set the pace as leaders. When I mean leaders now, not just the set part, all the leaders across board should be leading the examples, leading the charge in evangelism. There's a book by Bill Hybels, Becoming a Contagious Christian. Very fantastic book. Look, that will help us to do that will help a church, if get your church members, your workforce to read that book, and that can have a way of increasing your evangelistic temperature in your church. Okay? That's it, because you treat it about the iron sharpening iron. Once a leader is setting the pace, everyone will want to align and follow the pace. Okay? So let's see how leaders are actually setting the examples for other people to follow. Let's see how leaders can set the examples and show great responsibility in sharing the gospel, because that is one of the reasons why the church is going to grow in terms of conversion growth. All right, conversion growth. The third point, which I'm going to wrap up here, then we'll take more next Monday and wrap this up. Stay positive. Okay, when you share the gospel, stay positive that people are going to respond. Be positive that the gospel is good news. Be positive, stay positive. The gospel is already good news. Okay? Don't just go and feel that you are afraid. Will people be converted? Your own is to share the gospel, and let it not be from a religious perspective. Let it be done from a conviction that you're going to get some fruit. You're going to get some fruit. Stay positive and stay within the content of the gospel. Stay within the confines of the gospel. All right, stay within the content of the gospel. Find ways to infuse this gospel in your conversation. Find ways to make it applicable to people's lives, to people's situations. There's one thing I used to use to train people. Right now, people are gospel. They are prone to accepting the gospel because right now everybody is in awe because of the pandemic. Everybody is looking for solutions. Everybody is looking for something good. Everybody is looking for hope. Everybody is looking for encouragement. And so when you share the gospel, you share your faith, and you focus on the good side of the good news, it brings about hope. It brings about encouragement. It also ignites faith for someone to be saved. Ignites faith for someone to be saved. Then the fourth one has to do with preach it. Let your pulpit, whoever you're inviting as in your church as a guest, make sure that he has the theology of the gospel intact and infused in his sermon. The lead pastor must regularly preach and teach about the importance of evangelism. Okay? Have a day in a month or in a quarter where you emphasize and do a kind of motivation to emphasize the importance of evangelism. Now, one of the things I want to just say here is strength. When we do a kind of strength analysis of a church in terms of the fishbone diagram I use, you see, evangelism is the weakest. It's because most of the time in our churches, we do not emphasize the importance of evangelism. That's why evangelism is weak. The reason why worship is very strong is because that church has put in a lot of money, has put in a lot of energy, has put in a lot of resources, has put the best hands behind worship, gospel music ministers. And so that's why worship seems to be strong in most of our churches. But you see, when we begin to, and some churches who are putting emphasis on evangelism, you could see that their church is growing. I mean, churches who are at the top, they are not resting on their oasis. They are still emphasizing the importance of evangelism. They are still rugged, going to the streets to evangelize and distribute tracts. So the lead pastor must regularly preach and teach, train your workers about the importance of evangelism. The pulpit and platform is meant to raise some emphasis on what the church needs to focus on. What gets communicated from the pulpit to the entire church is always perceived as important. In fact, one of the things that makes the pulpit so important is that everybody feels that that's where God is speaking from, or that's when God is speaking to us. So from the pulpit, let's show the importance, let's show the urgency to evangelism. Let's show the urgency to evangelism. Let's use the main stage to deliver the most central message. That's the gospel that is meant to be shared by your entire congregation. Okay? So the pulpit must be saddled with the gospel. It must be saddled with the gospel. It must be concentrated with the gospel of the church, of Christ. Then the fifth one, I'm going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes, is to train your church members, your church workers. Train them. Okay? Talking about the gospel is not something that naturally comes to us. You know, one of the things that I want to say is to imbibe a bad habit is very easy. If you want to get a bad habit, you don't have to repeat it too many times. You just have that bad habit become a habit. But you see, when you get to the other side of the bad habit, which is good habit, it takes a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of compliance, accountability, a lot of repeats. Okay, not just to preach about evangelism or sharing the gospel. We need to also train. Okay, train your members to always think outside the four walls of the church. Okay, it's just natural for a church to be inwardly focused. It's just natural for a church to be thinking about themselves. But you see, the Great Commission is not about yourself. It's about the community. It's about you being outwardly focused. Let them understand the importance of that outwardly focused through trainings. Give them statistics of those people who are not saved in the community. It will create a burden that you need to propel and motivate your church members to preach in the gospel. Okay, to show them how people are not the statistics of how people are not coming to church, how people are unsaved in your community, and then let's see how no matter how small it is, train them, empower them, educate them. Let's see how they train them on how they can connect with unbelievers and not use inside language when you are having gospel conversations with the unbelievers. You see, there is a resource I will also want to do. That's 3 Cycle. 3 Cycle. If you go on YouTube, you will see quite a lot of trainings on 3 Cycle. That's a very easy way of presenting the gospel to an unbeliever, because what you know as a believer is not what an unbeliever knows. So you don't go and preach the gospel and start using words like redemption, sanctification, and all those big terminologies that we believers know. Once you start using inside language, psychologically you have created a gulf between you and the unbelievers, and they can't really understand. So that's why there's need for training, so that you can help your workers, you can help your members to interact, to connect, and to engage. There's a way unbelievers think. There's a way unbelievers act. And once you understand that, it will help you to be able to interact, to be able to connect, to help to be able to engage. Okay, so go on Google 3 Cycles Gospel Presentation. That way, and then you can play that. You can train your workers on how to present the gospel to an unbeliever to get the best result you need to get. I'll wrap up here. In a quick, please feel free to ask me any question. You have any question for me, please go on our Facebook. Our social media handle is scrolling on the screen. Please feel free to go on Facebook, drop a comment for us, drop a like for us, and then on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that when we have a new content, you can be able to be notified of those content. And perhaps if you go on our social media handle and you need anything church related, you need anything, your processes, your operating procedure, your template, you need help in training, consulting, revitalization, and strategic planning, please reach out to us. I'm always on the instant messaging side of all our social media handle. A lot of pastors are communicating with us. Let's see how we can help your church get gospel focus in real terms. Okay, you know, one thing is for you to say, I'm a friendly church, I'm a gospel focused church, but one thing is to allow the community to see that whatever you are doing is actually what you are doing. Okay, let's see how we can help your church to be gospel focused in nature. All right, so please ask any question from us. Ask any question. That's some of our phone lines on the screen. Like our Facebook page, go on our Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please do that. Share also this content to a church worker, a church pastor, and a church staff, a church leader, and that will help us to get some of this content in the right quarter to make our churches healthier. So I want to sign up here. Thank you. I'm going to wrap up the Gospel Focus Church next Monday and take up 1 or 2 questions from our audiences, and then we'll sign off. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for giving me your attention. Those who are, thank you for your likes. I can see people are watching. God bless you. Reach out to me if you have any question. I'm Niyi Dunmade. I'm the founder and the CEO of Magnicraft Consulting. I'm a certified church consultant with the Society for Church Consulting. I can help your church grow healthier through empirical assessments, trainings, and strategic blueprints. Let's just have this conversation and see how we can help your church and also improve the condition of your church. Thank you. Till I see you, come your way again next Monday. God bless you, and I love what you're doing.